Hello everyone, it's great to be back with Murph's Models. Today I'm going to do another character from Tim Burton's Corpse Bride.
I really love looking through the artwork.
Particularly the designs of the character designer, Carlos Grangel.
But today, I think I want to do one of these guys with hats. And I'd quite like to do a top hat. Either this guy, maybe this guy, maybe this guy. In fact, there are quite a few chaps with very distinguished looking top hats. Even this crazy dude. Which one will I do? I'm going to do him. He looks like the craziest of the lot. And I think he'll be a great character to sculpt.
In the Land of the Dead.
Okay, so let's get started with this guy right here. I mean, he's a bit of a challenge because he's got a big gaping mouth and a lovely long stovepipe hat, which is about as long as a stovepipe can be. Anyway, the most tricky bit is this mouth section. So I'll get out my usual stand with holes in it, and what I'm going to try and do is put a wireframe in this section and then a wireframe into that section so that the gaping mouth is gaping and mouth-like. So maybe I'm going to do something like that. And then bring this over to the front and open it out so that it becomes the top section. It's a little bit big at the moment. That's boring. Maybe I need to wind that around a few times so it's got something to grab hold of. It out like that. That's getting there.
So now
It's foil time. I need lots of foil. And I'm going to put a bit down into here, the mouth bit, and wrap that around the wire so that it stays solidly on there. I also need some eyes. What I'm going to do is some forced perspective. I'm going to do one eye large and the other smaller.
and I'll put some brows on using some foil.
Now I might wrap a bit of this around here, fill this in here.
And make a bit of a neck over here. And then wrap the whole lot up in masking tape.
Now it's time for my favorite clay. It's Sculpey. And I have in fact already rolled it into nice thin lengths.
But before we start on the head, I am going to do the eyes. I'm going to make them a bit larger and give them a nice, fine pupil.
Get a piece of Sculpey and squeeze it so it's the same thickness. Put it on top and push it around the eye. Roll it in my fingers. Push this pin through so that I know where the pupil is, because I'm then going to use my awl to create a small hole at the pupil size of that eye.
And if we do the same with the other, then we have two perfect eyeballs ready to bake.
I'm going to start with the bottom jaw. That's going to be my get-go.
So I'm going to press a snake of Sculpey against the side here.
I need my wooden sculpting tool and the scalpel to pull all that off like that. Around here as well. Push that in there. Push this in like that. Smooth this down. So he's getting a bit of a guttural, a bit of a saggy neck. Who needs a saggy neck? This guy needs a saggy neck because he's got one. Very saggy. And I like a bit of sag. It adds character, it adds flavor to a sculpt.
As does the right amount of wrinklage. So let's put a little wrinklage in there. And also, while we're at it, we need to fill in the inside of the mouth too.
So, before I go any further with this guy, with his kooky eyes and his big gapy mouth and rather unattractive teeth, I need to sort out a pattern for his sideburns
As a guide, so that I know when I have
about the right amount of flesh and the right amount of sideburn.
And just before I bake this chap, sandpaper is a good way of giving the flesh a bit of texture.
There we go. I think that's done. I'm going to bake. Just before we start on the top half of the head, I want to make a structure behind the head to hold up this humongous top hat, which goes on for hours and hours. It's a stovepipe hat, and that's what stovepipes are like. They're long, tall, and quite skinny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of dowel, which I'm going to plug into the top of the head,
So that it sits in exactly the same position each time. Behind that piece of dowel, I'm going to glue on this cardboard.
and then this goes in there. I'm going to have to turn this around.
Push in the dowel, mix up some Sculpey,
So push this in so that I'm jamming that around that piece of dowel.
and another piece on the other side, and then it's time to bake.
So I've baked this Sculpey.
The dowel still fits, and
Next up, I am going to make
this hat.
To do that, I need to trace over the drawing that I already have here.
Then snip it out with a lovely sharp pair of scissors. But now
I am going to
trace this out on a nice thick piece of cardboard and then cut it out really quickly with a scalpel blade.
Now I've got the stovepipe hat, put it back on the tracing paper, and this head sitting here, line this up, put a bit of masking tape, set on either side of the hat, and maybe put it on here, just also that it won't move.
Now with the plug,
I'm just going to put a bit of glue on the top there. I don't want it to go into there because I don't want to glue it onto the head. Remember, this is a plug, so this is going to go in and out. And then I've got another piece of dowel,
which I need to glue down to the top of the hat,
move it into that position,
and glue all those dowels down together.
Now, to make sure this stays down nice and flat, I am going to use some nice heavy baked bean cans. Let's cross our fingers, hope for the best, and leave it to dry overnight. So, let's see how it's stuck. Oh, it's nice and firm, which is good. If I slide the head off first. Gosh, it's all taped up all over the shop. Pull that out. And there we go. Next thing to do is to sculpt the hat. I just did a very quick sketch
to show me how this hat might fold and scrunch when I sculpt it. It's now time to get some foil and fill in around the dowels before I cover it in Daz. Ah, there we go. This is my favorite bit. Sculpting and smoothing and rubbing and all the rest of it to get the Daz to look exactly the way you want it. It's a bit of a challenge, but it always works out fine in the end. Bit of water to smooth it out. Put some folds in there. Nice. And there we go. Now it's time to let it dry out.
Just before I carry on with this lovely hat, I'm feeling like a frangipani, maybe an apple frangipani,
as a bit of a snack.
I mean, these are delicious. I just found them in the larder. I love a frangipani, so... Oh, that's delicious. Oh, another. Hang on. I wonder... Is that about the width of the... That could be the brim of the hat. I have a feeling I flatten this down. Not only is it nice and malleable, but I think I could make it into the brim of this hat. If I put a hole in the top, I shove that in there with a little bit of pushing and shoving, I can create a nice hat brim. Now, I am going to use some wallpaper adhesive and some tissue paper to create a fabric-y texture. First of all, some PVA and some water. Slather this with the glue and make sure it goes into all the grooves.
Lay on the tissue like that.
And I'm going to use some wallpaper paste on the top layer.
And then once that's done, put it away to dry. And the brim of the hat needs to be done too. Now that the stovepipe hat is dry, we can paint it black. And don't forget that brim. Next up, it's time to do the hat band.
I found this lovely old bit of black cotton drill. What I'm going to do is glue the top bit to the bottom bit.
And in doing that, we have a nice clean edge at the top.
So the brim is stuck onto the hat here. Now all I need to do is get this hat band and glue it along there. And there we have the hat band on the hat. So now it's time to do the sculpting of the actual flesh.
So with a thin layer of Sculpey, I'm going to start off with the forehead, push it in around the edges and then cut out the eyes because they're quite bulgy on this particular design. Build up the side of the mouth there. And also put in a bit of a cheeky grin on top of the mouth. Now once we get the eyes out, we can push the sides in a bit to give a bit more definition to the eye when we put the eyeball back inside. Just smooth off around the sides and push into the bridge of the nose. If you need to, you can put a little bit of PVA in occasionally just to smooth over the surfaces and glue them both together. Don't forget the forehead. That guy's got such a crinkly forehead, it needs to be crinkled properly. And that goes doubly for the eyes as well. The eye bag sags need lots of wrinkles and crinkles. Now it's time for his rather obnoxious nasal cavity. He has these two ridges on either side, which we need to put in there first and then dig a hole deep into the skull. The jawline is another feature that we need to make more prominent, and that brow above the second eye needs to go in just to give him a little bit more expression. Once that's done, he is indeed ready to bake.
Okay, so it's time to do the ears for this deliciously weird man.
So get a ball of Sculpey, form an ear shape, and then using a sculpting tool, a pencil, and even your finger, you should be able to make a fair representation of an ear. There we go. Slice off the edge so it sits on the head. For the other side, it's a bit more of a long ear, but we just do the same kind of thing, and there we have it.
Now I want to do some lovely gnashes for him. Let's get these gnashes on the road. I'm just going to square off a bit like that. Cut it at the base. Let's see, put that one on there. No, it's a bit thick. Get a bit off.
You kind of get the idea. So there's a lot of gnashes to do, so I'm going to crack on and get the rest of them done.
What I will do with those teeth,
Now that they're baked,
is just give them a little bit of a sand just to soften off those edges.
now it's time to make his sideburns.
And I have found a very fleecy fabric. I have put some masking tape
On the back so it doesn't curl.
So I have my pattern, and because the fur's on this side, it has to be upside down when I put it on.
On the back of the fleece. So draw around the pattern and then cut it out with a nice sharp pair of scissors. Great, so there's one very bushy sideburn. Of course, we can't forget the fact that he's got some bushy eyebrows as well, so I quickly snip these out, doing the same process, and there we go. He's got his facial furs.
My next challenge is to make this collar. To do that, I am going to get a little bit of foil, cut it, fold it in that way, like that, fold it down, kind of push it into the folds at the back here.
Get some glue and find some white cotton fabric to push into the folds. Snip it at the pointy edge.
I'm going to fold that over, and what I'm going to do is put cling film on here, and with some pegs so that it's nice and tight on that edge.
Now I need to be patient and let the collar dry. Dry, dry, dry. And now it is dry. So,
It's time to take these pegs off. I need to gently peel off.
the cling film.
If I pop this in here, let's see if I can get it to go here like that. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Just fold the edge out a bit. Before painting this guy, I first need to give him a coat of water, just to absorb the paint.
I'm going to use raw umber as my base colour. I just need a little bit because all I'm going to do is give him an all-over coat of colour. You can see already that all those wrinkly crinkly bits are starting to create a wrinkly crinkly man. Lovely jubbly. There we go.
Now a little bit of a dark eyelid there, and fill in the black inside the mouth.
And I think he is pretty much painted.
Except for the fact that I'd like to put a white highlight all over him using a nice piece of spongy foam.
For instance, on the nose, on the top of the nose, and on the brow.
I've sculpted a tongue out of Sculpey, I've painted it a lovely pink, and now I'm gluing it into the mouth interior. Now for the tedious task of gluing in the eyes and making them look as though they're looking in the same direction.
Done! Easy! Why did I ever think it was going to be tricky? So easy to put eyes in. Next up, it's time for the ears. They're the next lot to go in. And to put the ears on properly, I'm going to use some blue tack to stick them in the place that I think they should be. Then I will glue them once they're sitting in that spot.
Now it's time to make the shoulders for the frock coat.
And the ribbon that comes out of the edge. I am going to use Daz. Poke it into shape. Cut this bit off here.
And with a bit more prodding and poking, the Daz is ready to dry, dry, dry.
So I have some luxury black satin lycra here, which is very luscious and delicious, and I think
It's going to be perfect for his black frock coat.
if I fold this top section over, maybe twice, and put that at the top, that gives us a nice lustrous collar and then a less lustrous rest of the outfit. So that's what I'm going to do to make this guy look very, very striking in his black frock coat. So let's see what this looks like. If I put this on about there and then wrap it around, pull it over that way, Stretch it nice and tight. I can cut off this bit here and around here. For a little bit of extra fun, I have done a little bow out of black ribbon. So I'll pop that in there. And there we go. There he is.
Now it's time to glue on these sideburns. We're using my new favorite glue, Yoo-Hoo glue. Push it into the corner and use your modeling tool if you need to and dab it down onto the side of his face. Don't forget those eyebrows too. They're equally important. Now it's time to glue in the teeth
For this deliciously dastardly gentleman.
Then, like magic,
All I need to do is get some of this.
super glue rocket. It dries in a flash.
I'm going to go tooth by tooth.
Oh, and I almost forgot. If I put a little bit of water all around here, just a little bit of dampness, that will help the super glue go off just a little bit quicker. Now the bottom teeth are in. It's time to gum up those teeth a bit. They're far too white and clean, so let's give them some murky yuckiness. And finally, it's time to do a yucky wash of yellowy, bluey, greeny type of colours to give him a sort of an icky, nasty feel. Not to forget some dark blue under the eyes. So all I have to do now is put a hook in the back of this man with the stovepipe hat. And also to thank you for watching. Very happy to be back, and I hope to be posting lots more videos in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you again next time on Murph's Models.